Welcome to an all-new episode of the Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast. This is Corey Richmond, joined by Jason Brooks. Jason, a fan of KENTA from day one, and he was right to go and order that sweet go-to-sleep shirt a couple of weeks back because KENTA is now on our TVs, at least for the short term, every Wednesday on AEW Dynamite. Jason, how you doing today? And are you surprised that this finally appears to be a thing? AEW and NXT will be fighting each other every week, but they now have more competition to deal with New Japan Pro Wrestling being part of the AEW family.
Yeah, I think it's tremendous. This is something as fans that we've wanted. Meltzer this morning essentially confirmed that AEW and New Japan have some type of working relationship and will moving forward. Of course, we don't know what exactly it's going to look like. I'm sure we're going to speculate on that for the next hour or so. But yeah, just so you guys know, you are listening to Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast. We are on Twitter at Work Shoot Pod, on Instagram at Work Shoot Pod as well. Yeah, Corey, I think it's what we've wanted, right? Like what we've been hoping for since this all started. And now we're going to get it. We got dream matches, possibly cool storylines, champion versus champion. I mean, obviously we have the pandemic and we can talk about some of the ramifications from that and how that could look moving forward. But this is some really, really exciting stuff. And I think as fans, this is the most, as a fan, I would be excited. Obviously we've got WWE and we know what that is, but for AEW, for NXT, for New Japan, got Impact in there. Ring of Honors has a halfway decent show. Some really, really good stuff. And I'm very excited to see what, AEW, New Japan, Impact kind of figure out.
Absolutely. I mean, it's going to be interesting. And it's funny, right before we came on, we were speaking a little bit, about what could happen, may not happen. And like you just said, the pandemic actually turned out to be one of the key things that made this happen, where they were not sure when and if Jon Moxley would be able to defend the United States Championship, as Jay is getting ready to tell us what the beer of the week is, it looks like. But it's interesting, the fact that, when Harold May, the former president of New Japan Pro Wrestling, was in charge, it looked like this was never going to happen. Then all of a sudden, Tony Khan went and figured out a way to get all this to go about. I'm not saying Tony Khan's a genius of all of pro wrestling, because he's not, but he's willing to get.
People have marked him as a genius of all pro wrestling. Let's slow down on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see what he gets done. But at the end of the day, this is what it feels like is right for wrestling, where everyone's working together. I mean, not everybody working together against the big bad WWE, but everyone working together, like somewhat like the territory days, and seeing what's best to see what's going to happen. I mean, does anyone besides AEW actually make anything out of this in the long run? We'll see. But the idea that these
I think New Japan absolutely gets exposure from this.
Oh no, sure.
Listen, we do this thing, right, where it's like New Japan's the best wrestling company in the world, and you could argue whether they are or not, but they're certainly not the most well-known in America. So they could use the exposure as well from fans who like AEW, who have started to watch they may not know about the Bullet Club. I think sometimes we go under this assumption that everyone who watches AEW are marks, and have been watching forever. And that's not necessarily the case. There might be kind of newer fans of the product. So I think the idea that they could see someone like Okada or Bushi and say, oh my God, like who are these guys? So Hiromu, like there's so many guys they could see and then be Will Ospreay. So I think this absolutely will help New Japan. I think the Ring of Honor, when Omega was coming back and forth and the Bucks were going, in Ring of Honor, that really helped New Japan. So, I mean, we're watching New Japan World. We ordered New Japan World. A lot of that was because of AJ Styles, right? So, and the Bullet Club. So, yeah, I think this absolutely could help New Japan. I don't see how it could hurt them. It's, again, we're going to have to see how things work with the pandemic and things like that, when people can come over, how all that's going to look. But it's certainly a very promising partnership.
And the terrific host of our sister podcast, You Don't Know Jackie Endy, in the chat right now in the Wrestling Life, just brought up saying, can only help New Japan. Just like Jay said, absolutely correct. I mean, it'll make people who aren't, excuse me, dying over here, aren't household name stars. I mean, as much as we know who Okada and Tanahashi are, there's a whole group of people who, if you're not listening to and understanding Excalibur's references, you may not know who they are. Excalibur a couple weeks ago, mentioned Mike Bailey, former, independent worker who hasn't been able to come to the U.S. for 5 years because of visa problems. People like 2 weeks ago were like, that's a hint. He might, Speedball Mike Bailey might be coming in. But this is truly saying that something concrete's happening. And yeah, it was a cool moment to counteract the idea of what are we going to do, finding out that Edge is going to be on NXT this week. The biggest, one of the biggest stars of the last 25 years. You could say where he ranks there, but idea he's coming back to be on NXT for the very first time. You want a big time ending, and you could say it's this hotshot booking like everything else AW or WCW and all these people did during the Monday Night War.
I mean, I don't think it's hotshot booking, Corey. Omega or Kenta and Moxley have a match in a couple of weeks. I mean,
absolutely, sure.
And he GTS'd them. I mean, I don't think it's hotshot booking at all. I think it's you could say AEW had 18 million things going on, and they did too much on the show, which they do. But again, this is the advantage of Tony Khan being the ultimate wrestling fan. And I think sometimes the negative of him being such a big wrestling fan is that he throws too much on these shows, and it feels like a car crash. But the good thing is he's open. He's like, I'm a billionaire already. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, I just want to have fun shows that people like. I want to make money, and I don't want to insult the audience. He doesn't need to become a billionaire. He already is one. And so I think that's his mindset going in. And I think it's more of a positive mindset for wrestlers, because they don't have to worry about this guy's going to try to cut my pay so he can make a little bit more money. He doesn't need any more money. If they folded AEW up tomorrow, he'd be incredibly, incredibly rich. So yeah, no, I think what he's doing, you could say he's genius or whatever. I don't subscribe to any of that stuff. I think it's really smart. I think he's a really, really smart guy. And I think more so than anything, he's open-minded to what could be possible, and he doesn't restrict himself. And oftentimes those are the smartest people. Those are the people who are the most successful in business, people who don't feel like I have to subscribe to this notion on what this is all supposed to look like. And clearly he doesn't. He wants to work with everyone. He doesn't look at it as a competition, because I mean, really it isn't. Even NXT, I mean, are they really competing with NXT? I mean, I guess, they're on the same time, but really it's about them doing the best quality show that they can do, rather than saying we need to beat NXT every week. It's about doing a good show.
Yeah, and I mean, and you could say it's Pollyannish, but it's also what you think right now is best for the wrestling fans. True competition, either with yourself or against the WWE's product. Because like we said in the past, they're never moving to Monday night, never going to go directly against Raw because of their interest with the Jaguars in the National Football League. But their competition with NXT, and also in regards to other products for your business. And by working with everyone else, it goes and tells the fans that anything could always happen, but also the same idea that we should care about other things. And when someone else new comes in or a free agent becomes available, they may have been on your TV. And you know what? And they won't be freshly new to the company. You'll have an idea. So, I mean, I think the way that they've done this, and I know that like in our Wrestling Life Facebook group, which encourage everyone to join because it's a really good group out there. There's some bad apples, which we've spoken about in the past, but we'll get to that maybe another time. But the idea, the fact that on Impact on Tuesday, in the little TV advertisements he does for Dynamite every week, he actually gave a hint of this was kind of happening. If you think back now, because he even said, everything I was doing this week, I got a little crazy, but I'm letting Jon Moxley face Kenta on U.S. soil. Anything is possible. I'm going to take a break now for the but he kind of gave you that hint that he mentioned Kenta. By him saying that, maybe he's going to show up on your TV. I mean, all of these things equal out to a really nice puzzle that it's really exciting to be a wrestling fan right now. And I know we always say that every once in a while, like it's great to be a wrestling fan, and then all of a sudden we get annoyed by something. But on paper, the idea of Impact working together, AEW, New Japan, possibly ROH, because ROH and New Japan have the deal together, AAA. I mean, you've got an MLW next week. You got Laredo Kid, who's in part of AAA, versus Leo Rush of the MTV's The Challenge. You have all of these things going on where anything is possible, especially with a guy like a Leo Rush who's a free agent. And if you're doing the cross promotion, he could show up on your program to help himself marketing wise. So all these things help the wrestling industry and help the wrestlers.
Yeah, I think to your point, what you said, in terms of like this, like the 80s with the territory dates, except it's all on national TV, so we get to see all of it.
Right.
Essentially, that's what it is. If you're not in a WWE, you're in one of these companies, and you have a chance to be on any of these companies. TJP has been on MLW, New Japan Strong, and he's on Impact. I mean, he's been in every one of those companies. So yeah, I absolutely. I think it's an exciting time to be a wrestling fan. Some stuff's gonna suck, some stuff you're not gonna like, but overall, who knows what's gonna happen every week. So yeah, some really, really great stuff. So Corey, let's talk about how this is how this could play out. So we've got Kenta against Moxley, right, in a couple of weeks, February 26th, New Japan Strong. If you guys do have a New Japan subscription, I would highly recommend watching Strong. You have to watch every match every week, but there's some good young talent on there. Hikuleo, who I've talked about before, I think he's going to be a star at some point. So, I mean, where do we see that going? Do we see, Kenta is going to be on Dynamite next week in the main event? Where do we see that going with Moxley and the Kenta feud?
Well, it's interesting because the match was actually taped back in December, which has come out over the last couple of days. So the match has happened. No chance of this partnership falling apart in regards to that. So, but I mean, I could see this happening where there's some sort of screwy finish, or maybe the Good Brothers get involved because of the New Japan connection, continuing that, and then you set up a rematch at Revolution, at AEW Revolution, because unless you're going to go back to Moxley versus Omega 2 right away, I don't know if there's a match right now for Moxley. And I think if you do Moxley versus Kenta 2, that rematch, or some sort of thing going on there, or a multi-man tag involving your New Japan representative, maybe with the Good Brothers, because, as we all know, they're going back to Japan once they're physically able to. I think it could set up some stuff, or you could even maybe bring in a Rocky Romero. There's things you can do, maybe not in that respect, but you can make more angles go about as a result of it. I think it's going to be a launching ground for this feud, but also now that if you have an agreement, you can put people like a Private Party or a Sonny Kiss or guys who are lower on the card, give them experience working with new guys with Impact Wrestling and now New Japan Strong.
Yeah, I mean, Strong doesn't have a ton of guys, and a lot of the New Japan Strong guys are like guys like JP, Leo Rush, things like that. But imagine like Leo Rush being an AEW. That would be. Now, I know he's in a couple different places and whatever, but and this is just Strong, right? So the possibilities are really, really endless. And we'll see. I do expect Kenta to win the title, though. But maybe if it's gonna be some like long-term deal, maybe they have Moxley beat Kenta. So I'm not sure, but I'm very excited about that match. Corey, I know that there was a clip that you put on Wrestle Life. I did not get a chance to see it with Omega and Kenta. So if you want to talk to us about the clip and what you think that means for things moving forward.
Well, I thought it was really interesting what was done in that clip. It was about a minute and 35-second clip where after the main event was over, it's an AEW exclusive for YouTube or whatever, but they went and set up their main event for next week. They had Omega try to go and talk to Kenta in the backstage and was like, hey, brother Switchblade, another guy who just returned, Jay White, didn't tell me you were coming. And that, leads into the idea of, Jay White with his promo earlier in the week, which we can get into, saying how the real Bullet Club and all this other stuff, with Tommy Thomas still doing his own stuff, but they had him go, and then all of a sudden Kenta goes, I got nothing to do with you, shut the F up. I'm doing my own thing. I'm here for Moxley. Then all of a sudden he goes and says, well, you know what? We'll fix this. Lance Archer wants to get involved, things. Let's have a tag team match. Me and Kenta will get on the same page. Me and Kenta versus Moxley and Lance Archer for next week in a no DQ, lights out, basically anything goes match. And it went from having, an average AEW show next week with nothing really special to, holy mother effing God, we're seeing one of the big matches of 4 guys who were in New Japan last year. You have, Lance Archer, who faced Moxley at Wrestle Kingdom in a really good hardcore type of match for the U.S. title, a year and a half ago. And you got Kenta, who a lot of people think is, one of the most underrated guys in the world for, over a decade, with the best wrestler in the world, in North America. And, you're setting up all those tensions, and who knows who might still be around, I mean, Jay White's not coming because he's still on the Japan tour, but you might have guys from your New Japan Strong shows that could be, who knows, maybe a Brody Lee, not Brody, I'm sorry, geez, rest in peace.
Brody King, yeah.
Brody King.
No, yeah, I mean, let's we don't need to get in all like the fantasy booking, but yeah, I think they'll stick to, I think the best idea now is to do a slow roll. Mm-hmm. Like, we don't need 18 million, I know we're excited about the fantasy booking, but build up Kenta and Moxley. I don't know what the hell they're going to do with Omega, who he's going to go against. Eventually, I think he's going to go against Moxley again, which I think would make sense to have that a rematch. You could put that on a pay-per-view Revolution. I think it'd be fine to have that as a rematch. So you build up Kenta, you continue to get Moxley and Omega involved. You keep mixing them up. And then I think after this Kenta feud will be that, then it'll be like, where do they go from here? Or maybe they just take a break. It's going to be hard to bring all these guys over with the pandemic and quarantining and stuff. So I'm okay if they take a while with this. This is there are so many different possibilities. I mean, probably they're big. I mean, we talked about this too, man. Tama Tonga's been working all of us. As we said, he's been talking stuff about Omega, talking crap about the Young Bucks. What is he doing this for? He is doing this to start to work the audience, right? And everyone's going up in arms. Tama Tonga, he's an asshole. Yeah, this is wrestling, folks. It's entertainment. That's what he's supposed to be doing. So I love it, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Absolutely. You know what? The future is pretty bright for all of wrestling right now, because everyone looks like they're at least willing to work together for a common goal of making the product as good as possible. One of the things that we're going to have to find out as we talk about this subject in the weeks to come is how much integration we'll get. Is it going to be just sprinkling of, just like we've had with the Impact deal, where it's private party going for a month of tapings, and Kenny Omega there for a month of tapings, and where it'll just be Kenta for this 2 weeks or 3 weeks period leading up to their match? Or is it something that's going to grow? We'll have a lot of integration of talent going back and forth. I mean, we'll talk about in a little while the AEW Women's Eliminator Tournament for the title. But if I'm if I'm TNA's women's division, I'm sitting there going, what in the world is going on? So I mean, it'll be interesting where they go. But Jay, the other big thing of the week, and we'll get more into AEW and NXT a little bit later on in the show, is we had our big show, which you can go back and listen to our instant reaction to the Royal Rumble this past weekend. Edge at 47 years old won the title. We had the return of Christian. We have a lot of things going on. But now what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks is we'll find out who Edge is going to pick. If you listen to the Wrestling Observer and other places, it sounds like it's going to be Roman Reigns. But Jay, I'm going to ask this twofold. One, I think I asked you, instant reaction from the podcast. But after having a chance to a little bit to think about it, do you agree with what it looks like on paper it's going to be, or do you want to see something else? Edge versus Roman Reigns, Edge versus the winner of Finn Balor and Pete Dunne, or Edge versus Drew McIntyre? Where's your mind going?
I like the idea of Edge against Drew, because then I thought Daniel Bryan could go against Reigns. So that's what I would have liked to have seen, because I think Bryan can get a really, really good match out of Roman Reigns. I think that could be the headliner for one of the nights and be a really, really good match. It doesn't appear to be that's where they're going. So, I mean, that's fine too. Reigns against Edge, I think, could be a lot of fun too. Now the thing is, we were kind of told through the grapevine with rumors and stuff that Reigns would have the title for a while. So, but usually we know they like to have the babyface win at WrestleMania as like the go home feel good moment or whatever. So that leads me to believe that Edge is probably going to win because that seems to be how WrestleMania goes seemingly every year. But we'll see if that's what they do with their golden boy Roman Reigns. Who the hell is Drew gonna go against? Sheamus at WrestleMania?
That's
Really?
the big question here. I mean, he's got a couple of contenders. He's got AJ. You can possibly go with with the best
AJ
wrestler.
He just beat him.
Did they face?
TLC. He just beat him.
Well, that's right. Wow, see, that's how memorable some certain things on the Raw brand are.
It was a very good match. It was a good match, but it was a one. Kind of one. They needed to get a match in there, so. So yeah, it was a good match, but like he beat him already. Give me another guy. Is there any other guy he could possibly go against that would make any sense on Raw if he doesn't go against Edge? And don't give me Sheamus. One guy.
Well, I gave your guy in a pre-show, which you don't want to see happen yet because they could get lost. But if Finn Balor loses the title to Pete Dunne, I could see him going up to the main roster, and you do Balor versus Drew McIntyre. I think that could be, the guy who never lost the title because of injury, and the guy who's, your dominant champion since WrestleMania. I mean, that could be a pretty, two guys who work a hard style. I mean,
it'd be a good match. I don't see Vince saying like, yes, this is the direction I want to go, and this is a big enough star. No, I don't think so.
Could you heat up Damian Priest in 2 months?
No. Not enough time.
I guess he's gonna be stuck with Bad Bunny and the Bopsy twins over
there. Who
there.
apparently Bad Bunny might wrestle at WrestleMania. So that's
true. I did hear that.
That's what we're working with here. I don't know, Corey, and not to just bang on Raw like we do every week, but
it's an easy.
I mean, would it be Cena?
That's an interesting conversation.
Now we'll just get into it with Cena, right? The rumor, Cena has said, not a rumor. Cena has said. He's filming the show. It's in Vancouver. There's some type of actor's contract or whatever, and he can't come over. My buddy works in Chicago and actors places, and they are pretty ironclad about letting people go and things like that. So it is a very intense. The COVID process is very, very intense when it comes to actors. That I do know. Here's the thing, though. If he's been filming the show. The swerve part of it could be that the show stops filming. To me, that's the swerve part of it. Is the fact that is a show filming for 60 days? There's a chance it could end.
Filming until July. He's and the movie is the TV show is the Peacemaker, which is a prequel to this James Gunn's The Suicide Squad.
He is on set filming a show for 5 months, 7 months.
He's the star of it, I guess. I don't know. I mean, that's what everything he told, I believe it was SI.com that it's mathematically impossible right now. He sees it's mathematically impossible for him to be part of WrestleMania. Last year he was part of WrestleMania in the Funhouse match, which I enjoyed a lot, the cinematic match. But if you're going to do a cinematic match with him and, like a Goldberg or someone else, I could see maybe they can do some sort of filming around that where you maybe have somebody go up to Vancouver and they film stuff. And then, that other person who may not be a full-timer is able to quarantine back here or do something. Maybe you have
they won't have to quarantine. It's Canada where the rules are. Right. Canada does not have a lot of COVID. We have a lot of COVID. They wouldn't have to quarantine back here. We're the problem. Canada's not the problem. But with the testing requirements and stuff, I'm sure it wouldn't be, the whole giving them, doing an infrared scan to see if they have fever. It would be a freaking test. It'd be a COVID test.
You mean ROH rules? I got you.
Yeah, it'd be like a ROH thing. So do I think he's going to be at WrestleMania? 100%. Absolutely. Maybe 100%, maybe 90%.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I believe it.
But I think you made a great point, right? They could have someone go to Canada. Now, if they go to Canada, they'll have to quarantine. That'd be the part of it. But if it's a part-timer, like, okay, like I think they could figure it out. Vancouver's a beautiful city to be at for a couple of weeks. So I think they could figure that part out. Do I think he's in WrestleMania in some shape, form, or fashion? Absolutely.
Well, let me ask you the other version of this stuff. With the amount of importance that Vince McMahon over the last couple of years has put on part-timers, and the idea with the Peacock thing, and you're trying to get people, the average casual fan in, and I think the average casual fan knows who John Cena is a lot more than they know who Bray Wyatt or, Roman Reigns is. I know Roman Reigns
Absolutely.
has done a lot of stuff, stuff with The Rock and Hobbs and Shaw and different things with getting known because of, unfortunately, with the diagnosis of cancer and everything else. But mainstream people know who John Cena is because of national commercials and some of the movies. But, how much does that hurt, the average person of buying WrestleMania if he's got nothing to do with it this year?
You're not buying WrestleMania. You're buying Peacock.
Or buying Peacock if you're not a fan of The Office.
So, or you have it free from your cable. Like, I don't know that anyone's going to be, I think that's the thing, right? You're not paying $60 for this. So I'm not saying they're going to throw out a below average show, but certainly they don't need to give us all the bells and whistles, I know they're going to want to because of WrestleMania. Also, by the way, I thought about the guy for Drew. We could go back to the well again.
Okay,
The beast incarnate, Brock Lesnar.
Is if they're going to bring him in, you guys think he's going to be in the next next month?
Yeah, I mean, that would be the guy. I think that would be the guy. You have this Sheamus feud, which you talk about hot shot booking. I mean, my God. That was like let's slow roll, and then he kicks him in the head and then says, "I want the title." I mean, this is the most. God. Anyway, so we have that feud through the next, whatever, Fast Lane, whatever this next pay-per-view is.
Elimination Chamber.
And then Elimination Chamber. So they could do Elimination Chamber and Fast Lane, and then you have Brock. So I think it makes a ton of sense. And I think he probably would be, and I know that they wrestled each other last year, but he never got a rematch, right? He was gone for a year. So he's probably the guy. That's gonna be my guess. So Brock against Drew rematch, and then Reigns against Edge. And I think, that's okay. I mean, I think Edge and Reigns could tell a good story. Edge is so good on the mic now. It's, so I think they could tell a great story. And with Drew and Brock, I think, it might be a little bit of a rougher way to tell that story, but at least you have the guy coming back for his belt that, he never got a rematch for, and so on and so forth. So there's different ways they can go there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the last guy I would think of going back to the Drew thing is the guy who's been best protected on Raw over the last, year. You could always have, as well as they've booked Matt Riddle, you could have Matt Riddle, get a surprise win over Bobby Lashley, and Bobby Lashley, basically destroys Drew, and then you just have Bobby Lashley, like I said, guy who you don't know.
He got a title shot though.
When
he got a title shot during one of those June pay-per-views.
Did he really? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
These
it was a good. It was a good match. But I'll look it up while you keep talking. But yeah, no, it was. I mean, it was definitely one of those June pay-per-views. But anyway.
Yeah, but like I said, I mean, it'll be even interesting. So I guess the other question is, how long do you think it's going to take for Edge to make his decision? Do you think we get the decision on Friday with Reigns, or do you think they actually push this out for a week or two, where he actually waits for the Finn Balor Dunn match to happen, and he goes and goes on once or twice on Raw? Oh God, the other person, which we could always go back to Randy Orton and the Fiend and make it a three-way, which I saw rumored, some pages, which total snooze fest. I don't want to see. But I mean,
so Lashley did go against Drew at Backlash. That was the show. Oh my God, that would be horrendous.
Let Finn Balor lose.
That would be. I mean, I think Brock would be fine. I think that'd be okay. It'd be a rematch. He didn't, he lost the belt. He never got a rematch. I think Brock would be fine. I think the Orton. I mean, Corey, that's probably where they're going.
Three-way or just Orton?
Three-way, and you have Orton. I have Wyatt win the title and beat Orton.
Oh, that's terrible.
I mean, Orton's got to come back, or Wyatt's got to come back.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I remember
So if
before,
not, so we've got Sheamus is gonna not win. So we've got Brock and we've got Orton and Bray Wyatt. I think those are kind of and Cena maybe. Those are kind of the options. But I don't think Cena should get a title match either. He doesn't need to get a title match.
I mean, you could sell the idea of him or Randy Orton going for that, 17th title, breaking Ric Flair's record finally, which I don't know if will ever be actually.
They feuded the whole year last year.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Well, let's move on. We'll figure that out. We got time to figure it out, but let's move on. To the next thing. Yeah, I think Edge against Reigns makes a lot of sense. I think that could be a good feud. So we'll kind of see how that goes.
So speaking about Roman Reigns, I was listening to one of the many, after shows, people talking about Raw and trying to make sense of it. Because, usually when I'm finished watching Raw, I'm sitting there going, oh my God, what did I watch for 3 hours? Please help me. As Jay is the lot more willing victim of actually, tweeting, at work shoot pod to put out his opinions. But Sean Ross.
It's literally because I have nothing else to. It's literally because I have nothing else to do. Like I'm usually tweeting and I'm mad and I'm watching it and I'm fast. I watch a show in like a half hour and I'm like, what am I watching here? But anyway, go ahead.
So, but Sean Ross Sapp and Denise Salcedo from Fightful.com on their after show brought up an interesting conversation. I wanted to get Jay's point of view on this. Right now, is there anyone on the roster who you think is either ready or should be the guy to beat Roman Reigns, who's basically your best character, one of the only characters truly over right now? Because, I mean, like you said before, you always want to, if you can, have WrestleMania go off with the happy ending of Edge holding up the title, the boyhood dream coming true, all that stuff. But is there anybody really out there that they've built enough in any of the company to beat Roman Reigns? Me personally, I think he's like your best character right now. And unfortunately, it's a heel. But I think you keep the head of the table with the title, leaving WrestleMania. Is there anybody out there they've built enough to defeat Roman Reigns who should?
I mean, what did we just talk about for 10 minutes, right? Can we get anyone on Raw? We got Daniel Bryan or whatever. I mean, they didn't build anyone up. No, I mean, Daniel Bryan is a natural guy who's a main eventer who they could just put in that slot. But did they build anyone up? No. I think Big E will get there. And I think they're actually doing a halfway decent job with him. SmackDown, again, they actually try to make a wrestling show that makes sense. So I think eventually Big E will be there, maybe toward closer to the end of the year. I think eventually, but I don't think they're there yet. I definitely don't think they're there yet. But yeah, I think Bryan would be the only guy, and maybe Big E eventually will have a shot at the title. I have to think that after Edge, if he wins, because Edge is up, I mean, he's going to be part. I mean, I don't see him out there every SmackDown. So if Reigns retains the title, I see him doing, I know we've talked about Daniel Bryan feud a million times, but I see him doing a Daniel Bryan feud, and then, that'll Rollins. Be maybe do some, and then, there you go. I don't know, but it'll be funny with Rollins. It's like, what do they do with him? What does his character become?
Yeah,
he's not the Messiah. He can't be the Messiah anymore. They gotta do something different. He can't just be, I'm the Messiah, fall asleep again at that. They got to figure out what to do with him. So does Rollins become a babyface again? Does he, was that kind of a one-off at Royal Rumble for a little bit? I'll be very interested in the scene.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I'm truly looking forward to on SmackDown this week is Rollins coming back at the Rumble at 29, which I think that was a mistake. He should have been number 30 instead of Braun, who they, brought back the night on last week's SmackDown. But I think it's going to be really interesting on what, Seth Rollins says on SmackDown this week on his first return to SmackDown, basically since being drafted, So, I mean, I think that's going to be an interesting storyline of what his direction is going into WrestleMania. I know that's a different subject we'll talk about, in the weeks to come. But, I think he's the guy who you can most likely have face, Roman maybe at SummerSlam or something, but I would not take the title off him. And that's maybe the reason why, like you, I don't want to see Roman versus Edge. I think it could be a really good match. But I feel like by having Edge cashing in, having the title match against Roman Reigns and the story of, being out for so long, and this is his thing to be a champion, which he never lost, puts the company in a weird situation. Do you not have Edge win? or do you take the title off of your?
Yeah, but I don't think
fight?
I think Edge could be. I think Edge could be a transitional champion. I don't think it matters if he wins and then loses in whatever, a couple months at Money in the Bank or whatever. Yeah, I don't think it really matters that much. I think if he beats Reigns and has that song, it'll be fine. Reigns is main evented like all these WrestleManias. So and Reigns could lose to me tomorrow and he'd still be where he is. So I don't think it'd be a big deal at all if he loses the match, to be honest with you. So I think if anyone could lose, he could lose. I still think, you need to keep Drew strong. But I absolutely think Roman Reigns could lose. You do a couple more rematches. You have Reigns beat him again. I guess the interesting thing with Edge is, what is the long-term plan with him? He's 47 years old. He looks great. Like, he's in great shape still. Apparently this is what he wants to do. Like, he wants to come back. So, I mean, does he want to be a kind of a full-time part-timer? Kind of like Daniel Bryan, a guy who's there pretty consistently, but not every week. What is his plan? That's I think the interesting thing. Obviously, this road to WrestleMania, he's going to be on all these shows and he's going to be out there a lot. But if he wins the title, what does he become? Is he like Brock Lesnar? He shows up once a month, or is he a guy who's going to be out there a little more? So, yeah, I'm definitely very curious to see where Edge is at with everything, and kind of what he does moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the next couple of weeks we'll see where his decision goes. We'll see how Christian is involved, if they do that, or how they involve.
Didn't he have all these concussion problems? How is he back? I'm glad he's back. I love Captain Charisma, but man, he's got a lot of concussion problems.
It is amazing. I've heard, a couple of years back, WWE would not pass anybody to return, and now everybody's back. It's interesting if the pressures of competing and living up to all the money they're getting from all these other partners, or is it has modern technology gone so good that Daniel Bryan could pass and Edge can pass, Christian could pass, who's next? Geez, didn't really want to say that on the show, but it is interesting to say the least.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
So, I mean, Raw is always not exactly the best show, but, unless there's something that really bothered you on Raw, I think we can move on to the Wednesday Night Delight.
Please, let's. NXT had a very solid show this week.
Yeah, NXT AEW. Now, here's the thing that I'm going to say. We already brought it up with the KENTA stuff, where some people would say it's hot shot booking or whatever. But the big thing about AEW NXT most weeks you can say in ring is a better show. And Jay will definitely agree with that point when I let him speak in about 30 seconds here.
Every week.
But you know what? When you watch AEW, things happen that matter that you remember. On NXT most weeks, and Jay, you may disagree with this, it really doesn't feel like anything super important happens most weeks. Like NXT to me was a good show, or even a very good show. But you know what? Like a day after watching it, I remember little things, but nothing like really stood out to me going, oh my God, besides the Edge segment, which we could talk about in a second here.
Yeah, but Corey, here's the thing, and our buddy Brian Drake pointed this out, right? Like, the NXT doesn't have stars. So they aren't going to stand out. They don't have anyone like, as much as you could say Kenny Omega is a star, isn't a star, whatever you want to say. They don't have anyone to his level. They don't have anyone like Jon Moxley. As much as Chris Jericho, I could not see him wrestle again and be okay. They don't have anyone like Chris Jericho. They don't have any stars. Cody Rhodes. They have no one like Cody Rhodes, who I think has turned himself into this star, which I predicted many years ago, and WWE didn't see for whatever reason and dropped the ball on him. That might be one of the all-time guys, by the way, they dropped the ball on with what he's done with himself after. But yeah, they don't have any stars. Their biggest star might be Io Shirai. They don't have any stars, right? So you could say Balor, but I mean, yeah. So I think that because they don't have any stars, it's hard to have as much of a impactful You know, and NXT wasn't ever that. They weren't ever like a, oh my God, it's car crash TV. There's crazy angles. We're doing it. It wasn't like that. It was like a good, very, very good wrestling show. And that's still what it is. And that formula really hasn't changed. I know Chris Hero was on some show and he's like, it changed when they went weekly and stuff like that. And, you know, or 2 hours on USA. And I mean, that's probably true. You got to change a little bit, but, and they lose people. They just lost Damian Priest, who I think would have probably, if he was in AEW and let's say it stays in NXT and he's there, he probably would be champion this year. He would have been NXT champion this year more than likely, right? But they don't have him. He left. He's gone. So, you know, I Corey, it's hard to compare. It's just hard to compare.
Yes, I mean, I just put up on the share, you know, for the video viewers, just brought up the results from this past week's NXT. On Cage Match, you got an average score, I believe, of 7.94, which is a really good number. But, you know, like I said, you know, you had some good matches. I like what they're doing with, you know, Santos Escobar. I think it's interesting. I mean, this Curtis Stallion thing, I think, was a total waste of time. I mean,
well, yeah, I mean, he lost. He lost. He gone.
He gone.
Go back to Texas, Chris Stallion.
Yeah, let's go driving for 16 hours and being the Lone Star, whatever the hell that is.
Lagana del Fantasma match was good. Austin Theory match I enjoyed. I thought the women's tag, the Dakota Kai, Casey Catanzaro, Kaden, I think that was the best match of the night. I absolutely loved that match. These kind of underdogs fighting from underneath the whole time. You got these established women stars, and they're trying their best to win. I thought the match was fantastic. I thought it was a lot of fun. And yeah, I that was my favorite match, other than the Britt Baker Thunder Rosa match. You know, those were my two favorite matches of the Wednesday.
I don't know. I thought that Casey was a lot sloppier than she was, you know, 2 weeks before. I know she's young and she hasn't been doing this very long, but
she made a mistake or two. But I don't think she was sloppy. She went out. She really like went for it with some of her moves and didn't miss. To me, sloppy is like, you know, fucking up a suplex, like, or Nia Jax throwing someone on their head. She's doing flips and shit, and she misses the spot. Like, that's not sloppy to me. I didn't think
it was anything special. I thought it was, like I said, I think as an overall show.
I disagree. I thought it was a great match.
Yeah, so like I said, I mean, it's interesting to see what they do going forward. But what, if anything, really stood out though from NXT this week before we move on to AEW? Because like I said, I thought it was a solid.
Yeah, that, like I said, that women's match, I thought was really, really good and really fun. Yeah, other than that, I don't think there was anything that stood out. I'm glad Kushida going to get a title shot. I thought that interview that he did with the new interviewer there was hilarious. You know, yeah, I think Johnny Gargano has been fantastic. I think he's been so great as a heel, and he is what the Miz should be on a Raw, right? So Johnny Gargano, he's corny, he jokes, he, you know, obviously, you know, he's kind of, you feel like he's kind of in on the act too, and he's really corny and really, you know, got dad jokes, whatever, but he's not a dork, if that makes sense, right? Like, he's got this stable and like they kind of all play off each other. Whereas the Miz and Morrison, it's like, please, I don't want to watch these guys. I think that's who the Miz, and I know the Miz has been around for 20 years and whatever, and he has 3 shows and he's got a production company. He knows more about wrestling than I'll ever know. But that's more of what the Miz should be, rather than whatever the hell he's doing with John Morrison. It's the worst thing ever. But anyway, we don't need to talk anymore about bashing Raw again. But yeah, I think Gargano's been great. Glad Kushida is going to get a title shot. That show looks stacked.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Vengeance look. And Corey, here's the thing, and this is what I'm just going to say this.
Sure.
I love AEW. They can't put a show like that on. I don't think they can. I don't think they have the. I don't think they have that level of. I don't think they can put a show like that on. I don't.
agree, but we'll definitely see. I mean,
I get that you disagree, Corey. They haven't had a card like the card that we're gonna see NXT. They haven't had a card like that. Now, part of it is they want to get Jericho on all these pay-per-views, and we know, Father Time's catching up to him. So maybe when he retires or whatever, maybe we'll start to see that. But Corey, they haven't had a. Have they had a card that looks like Vengeance? I don't think so. I don't think they've had any card that looks like that.
you're saying in recent months or just in general?
In general, what card have they had that's looked
Last
like
year's
Vengeance?
Evolution blows this card away, which was the best card of the year. But we could talk about it, more as time goes on. But just want to quickly say, Felipe.
Oh yeah, I disagree with that. I'm gonna look at that card last year too.
Oh,
I mean, they had maybe the greatest tag team match of all time. But the show as a whole, I don't know if I agree with that.
Take a look. Well, I'll just as you do that, I'll let people know that Felipe from the Total Basis podcast, joined us in the chat, saying good evening, gents. You can check them out on Sundays around 11 a.m. in the morning every week, talking fantasy baseball and a lot of other great stuff when it comes to baseball. Him and Sean and the main guy, Henry Maldonado, said, what's up, fellas? Could catch him on Mondays on Dong City, talking baseball with Vince as they continue to talk about all the latest going on in the postseason. Well, not postseason, but the off season. Colton Wong, signing with the Brewers and everything else going on with if we're gonna have spring training starting on time. But
Colton Wong. They're not talking about freaking Colton Wong. Get out of here. All right, come on. Let's go to the next thing.
Maybe Trevor Bauer.
Colton Wong. Trevor Bauer's gonna figure out what team he's gonna play in a couple of days. Mickey Callaway is basically a total perv. They're not talking about Colton Wong. All right, come on, go ahead.
But
Colton Wong. Get out of here.
I like to fire you up, that.
Okay. I'm just gonna we're just gonna do this because why not? Dustin Rhodes against Jake Hager. Get out of here. Darby Allin against Sammy Guevara.
Was
good
great
match. Very good match. The tag title match. Greatest tag title match of all time. Fine. Chris Statlander against Nyla Rose. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Cody against MJF. Good match.
Was really, really good.
It was a good match.
It was very good.
Orange Cassidy against Pac might have been the best match of the night. Oh well, next to the tag team match. Mox against Jericho. I don't think was a great match.
That was really good.
I don't think that was a great match. Absolutely not.
Okay.
So we've got a bunch of good matches. That might have been their best show overall. I'll give you that. They've got a bunch of good matches and 2 great matches. Great. They've got more people, but the MJF Cody match was good. It wasn't even MJF's best match. I think Jungle Boy.
I don't disagree with that. Yeah, his best match was with Jungle
Boy. So it was a very good show, but like that's the best show that they've had so far. And I'm gonna say this. Part of the thing is they got to always have the women's matches, and generally they're not always up to par. I think they're starting to get there with the Thunder Rosa and whatever. But anyway, so that's just I will stand by what I said. I think at this point they are not capable with the tricks and gimmicks they like to do, which is fine. I don't think they're capable of having a show like Vengeance. But all right.
So as we talk about
what was this? What was it? That battle royal was
really good.
A shit show.
What? All right, no, hold on.
I'm being funny. The battle royal was fine. It wasn't Corey. The battle royal wasn't really. It was an 11-minute. It was an 11-minute battle royal where people just got thrown over the top rope. It was just fine. It was fine.
It was good. I do want to get your opinion though quickly before we move on. It's not a big thing. What did you think of the new way of doing a battle royal with tag teams, where it wasn't the usual WWE style? Where
I like that.
Eliminated.
I like that. The problem is. Everyone's getting eliminated so quick you didn't know what the hell was going on. I think that's the only issue with that is like you didn't know. Like I forgot. Like they're like the Young Bucks have both been eliminated. I'm like, have they? So I think that was maybe an issue is that You had to eliminate so many people in so short of a time that I think that kind of hurt it. But overall, it's a battle royal. It was fine.
And like you said, Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa, I thought was a very good match, 13 minutes long.
Absolutely.
It got a 6.89 out of a possible 10. I've got to
We don't need it. We don't need to get in other people's ratings. It was a good match.
And I think it really brings up the idea of this women eliminator tournament, which is coming up the next couple of weeks, which we can talk about now for a couple of moments. I think that Britt Baker has to be the favorite to win this, especially the American side. We don't know what the matchups are besides Rio versus Serena Deebs, the NWA champion, which is interesting. Where she's been on TV here and there.
Yeah, interesting. They don't have Riho against like Tay Conti or someone like that. It's going to be against Serena Deeb. So yeah,
like if they wanted to make it a big time first match, on her.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, shit. That's one of the best matches you could have. Corey, I agree with you 100%. I think Britt Baker is absolutely got to be the favorite, especially the fact that she beat Thunder Rosa. They've been building her up for so long. I think she has to be the favorite. I think it's her time to go against Sheeta. They had maybe her best match and Sheeta's best match. I mean, that match on Dynamite where they were bleeding, it was fantastic. So I think Britt Baker is definitely the favorite, and I think she's gonna be the next champion.
And I think that's the right decision. I mean, as much as I like, and then you could run back Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker, maybe at All Out or somewhere down the line where if Thunder Rosa is officially with this company, she can maybe be your champion who takes it off of Britt, or at that point, maybe you brought in someone who is big enough and good enough to take it off Britt Baker. But I think Britt Baker year 2 can be, now that she's gotten better in the ring, she's your big project. And I think she's got the total package, not Lex Luger, but the total package of everything, talking and in ring. Something that Sheeta is really good in the ring, but she just doesn't exude a star, and that's what you really need, I think.
Yeah, I don't think they do a good job with Sheeta. I really think they do a very, very poor job with her and highlighting her. If you watched AEW for the last month, you would think Britt Baker should be the champion, right? And I think with NXT, you watch NXT and you're like, oh, Io's the champion, she's the badass, and you don't see that with AEW with the women's division. We could talk about that on Raw, right? Where like the champion is Asuka, but she's overshadowed by a lot of other things. So that is a little bit of an issue, but we'll see where they go.
And like I said, and we'll see where it goes. Like I said, and there's the other thing I wanted to quickly bring up as we continue to move along on this show. It's gonna be interesting to see how they handle this women eliminator when it comes to the matches in Japan. Because half of this bracket, I'm like, unfortunately, we're bigger fans of American wrestling when it comes to women, and not knowing all the women who are in this bracket, unfortunately. But it's gonna be interesting to see how they film these matches. Will they air? Will be another thing, just like the women's tag team tournament. Will there be a YouTube show like every Monday right before Raw, or how they do this? Jay, what's your thoughts on that?
I don't think there's any way these matches air in AEW. A lot of them. And so I think there'll be YouTube, or Dark's 5 hours, so they could just put it on Dark. I think the thing is, how are they going to continue? How do they make the fans care about this? That's going to be the interesting part. They've made fans care about Thunder Rosa, Britt Baker. They've had Serena Deeb, but we've never heard her talk. Jade Cargill should be the champion according to what they've done here. Red Velvet, they've profiled finally, but it's hard when they have not profiled. So, and obviously the Japanese women, that's different, right? That's a different thing. But so how are they going to make fans care about these women, especially the women in Japan, who a lot of us are not familiar with? So they've got some work to do here. And other than just, okay, here's just some good wrestling, like you got to make people care about these characters, especially if they're going to be on Dynamite at some point. So we shall see.
Yeah, and like I said before, it's going to be interesting to see with everything that's going on with the deal with New Japan and Impact, and, other companies that could be down the line, why the Impact women were not involved in this tournament. And, some of the Impact women, maybe you don't want to put, Peraza win because you don't want to have her lose and hurt your champion on that brand. But you wonder why other people who was such a stacked division weren't involved in this.
Well, it makes sense, Corey. They want to profile their women. I mean, you know, you got Tay Conti, you got some developmental people with Tay Conti and Anna Jay. They want to highlight them. You got Serena Deeb and Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker. I mean, makes total sense why they wouldn't have, you know, these women who, you know, and also not for nothing, we love them. We know Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steeles and whatever, but the audience may not know these women. You know, when Thunder Rosa came on, they did really good profiles of Thunder Rosa and highlighting how good she was and things like that. You know, the audience may not know who the hell Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steeles and Havoc and Nevaeh. They may not know who they are. So I think it makes a lot of sense that they would not highlight them and maybe bring them in for one-offs at some point. So, you know, I don't know if I agree with that, actually. I think it makes sense for them to highlight the women that they have there. Whether they're good or not is another question, but it makes sense for them to highlight the women who have been there, who have worked hard to move up and improve. And, you know, hopefully Impact Wrestling, you know, women's wrestlers will eventually be on the show because they sure as shit need them. But yeah, we'll see what happens. It makes sense they want to kind of grow their own.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how that all works. And I guess the last thing quickly on AEW, and if you want to talk about, we can. I mean, the wedding was what it was. It was a harmless wedding. Who cares? They're still booking, you know, Miro terribly. We'll see how that goes down the line. But the 6-man tag that led into the KENTA segment, I thought was really good. I personally thought that was the best thing of the night on the two shows. I know, Jay, you felt the women's tag match in NXT was, but I really think the way that they have booked Phoenix, I wish he would win more, but Jay, you may disagree with me on this, but watching that, I felt that Phoenix should be the guy getting the title shot next against Kenny Omega, not Jon Moxley, based on the crowd reaction.
Well, he did get a title shot and he lost.
Agreed. No, I understand that.
He did get the title shot and he lost. I think Corey, if he didn't have a mask and was better at English, I think he might be the champion. I mean, is there any better wrestler there than Kenny Omega? I don't know, than Phoenix. I don't think that there is. In AEW, is there someone you'd rather watch wrestle other than Kenny Omega? Is there anyone else there you'd rather watch wrestle?
I don't think there is.
There isn't. So if the guy didn't have a mask on and was was better with the English language and whatever, you know, if he was Santos Escobar, he probably would be the champion or would have had a title run or whatever at some point. So, you know, and also, like, you know, we watched the documentary on him, on that, you know, that wrestler documentary they had on Vice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
On Viceland, and to hear his story and, you know, coming from Mexico, and he had a young child and working his way up. I mean, he's the baby face of baby faces, right? And so I hope they do more to highlight his character rather than, you know, I think sometimes, you know, they're maybe afraid to have the guy speak in Spanish because then the audience gonna be like, what, you know, ignorant assholes. But I don't know. Maybe they do subtitles. Maybe they do what they've done with EO, where they do these video packages where she speaks in Japanese and they do subtitles and they kind of make her look like a badass. Like, I don't know. He's such a great wrestler, and he wrestles a babyface style, and he's a natural babyface character in the ring. You know, if he was in New Japan, he'd probably be the junior champion. I think there's probably not much doubt about that. And we would say, when is he going to go to AEW? So I don't know, Corey. I struggle with it, but I love Phoenix. I agree with you. I've loved him since Lucha Underground. And, you know, we'll see that, you know, hopefully he'll get a run at some point with a title or I mean, he hasn't won a title. He hasn't won a title. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys in AEW that you wish got, you know, better book, but there's so many guys. They keep on bringing in more guys. I mean, listening to different things, you know, one of the guys that now you could say possibly could come in is, you know, Harry Smith, because of now you're booking Lance Archer better, and if you're doing a thing with New Japan stuff, you can.
He needs to go to NXT. He should not go to AEW.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying
that'd be a big mistake.
Open with different guys from. I mean, it's funny. I totally forgot about it. Like a couple of weeks ago, like Lance Archer was on Being the Elite, and he was wearing a Suzuki Gun, shirt. I think at the time I was like, oh, whatever. He's just wearing whatever he wants backstage in these silly shows. But now that you've got New Japan, you could bring back, the Killer Elite Squad with Harry Smith and him.
Well, yeah, I don't want to do the whole fantasy booking thing. Sure. We'll see what happens. With Harry Smith. But I agree they need to do a better job of highlighting the people who are there. And they give Joey Janela a shot. I haven't seen Sonny Kiss in forever. Mm-hmm. Not that Sonny Kiss is great, but I think the problem, Corey, is they're running a show that they have their formula. Moxley, Omega, Jericho, Cody, Bucks. They're on every single show. And Jericho oftentimes is wrestling and oftentimes has a segment. So sometimes Jericho has 2 segments. So he is sometimes 20, 25 minutes of the show. And I love Chris Jericho. He is a top 5 guy for me of all time. But it's really hard for me when other guys are not highlighted, when you have Chris Jericho taking up 25 minutes almost every episode. And God bless him. The Inner Circle's been entertaining and that stuff's been great. But I think that it's hard when you have Miro's out there doing that. Wedding was terrible, Corey. It was and that's why I didn't say the show was very good. So that was my and the whatever they did with Kingston and Archer, that madness. Those 2 things for me were like, but the were train wrecks. But the wedding was awful, and that's my issue, right? It is you have people who should be highlighted more and aren't. I mean, I still remember that Phoenix when Phoenix was gonna have the match with Omega. And Pac talked the whole time. Well, how does that put Phoenix over? Why not have Pac? If I was a fan, I'd say, why is Pac not wrestling? Right? Look at this week with Sting and Darby Allin and that whatever that promo was by Sting against Team Taz. Sting spoke for Darby Allin like he was his big brother and he was fighting his battles for him. Darby Allin's the champion. Why is Darby Allin not talking? So some of this stuff, they need to figure out. I know they have a formula. I know people want to see Jericho and they want to sing his music, and he's a star. He's the biggest star in AEW. He's a bigger star. He's one of the biggest stars, right, in wrestling history. So I understand they want to have him out there every week. And it's not just about him, but Cody's got to be out there every week wrestling Peter Avalon or whoever the hell, and you gotta have the Bucks out there every week. I don't know. I struggle with how they're gonna get everybody over. How they're gonna get people to the point where they can win titles. I don't know.
You know what? Unfortunately, and we'll say this very quickly because we're running very low on time right now, but the formula is winning. Once again, AEW won in the ratings. They won in the 18 to 49 demographic, number 3 on the night. AEW 844K to NXT 610. And this is one of the last topics. Edge couldn't save NXT. And somebody wrote this on Twitter, Edge couldn't save NXT. Honestly, just move NXT already, to a new night. And that's a discussion for another time because it's never going to happen most likely until NHL, goes to USA Network on Wednesday nights possibly. But I guess my question is Edge a draw? Because, the Raw number really didn't move that much. I mean, they didn't go down, but the Raw number didn't move. AEW still won the night handily. I don't know what's going to happen on SmackDown, but what's your thoughts on Edge really not helping helping? And it was advertised I know it wasn't advertised on Raw, but it was advertised on social media for like a day and a half.
Yeah, I think that what you just say, it was not advertised on Raw. I think that was it because we did talk. I was like, Edge didn't get the bump, but I think maybe they didn't do a good enough job of promoting Edge. But and you could also say, hey, social media is a big thing. People, are watching. What is uh, WWE have 5 million Twitter followers or whatever. So
Mhm.
you would think they probably would do better. But yeah, it's interesting. Edge didn't move the needle. It did not move the needle. Um, and you think about when they had Survivor Series and NXT was involved, how well they did in the ratings during that time when they had all those WWE guys. But Edge didn't move the needle. So, and maybe that tells you that one, the social media stuff was too late.
Mhm.
Two, nobody thinks Edge is going for the NXT title. So yeah, it could be a bunch of, or people don't care about Edge, which I don't think is the case. So there are some factors that were in play there. But I think the WWE definitely should have promoted that he was going to be in on NXT. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see how things go over the next couple of weeks and what they do on SmackDown, which has been a solid show ratings wise and performance wise. Jay, I guess the last thing that happened on Wednesday, just very quickly, we'll talk about it more next week when we see the match. But we've got the inter-promotional match for, I don't know if both titles are on the line. MLW, Laredo Kid versus Leo Rush. Are you excited for this match? Do you think it's not been built enough? What's your thoughts quickly as we talk about MLW for about 3 seconds this week?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be. There's not much to say. I think it's gonna be maybe the match of the night if they give it time. I love what MLW does in terms of the announcing, and I think Saint Laurent and Rich Booking. I think that might be the best announced team on television. I think they do a tremendous job, and I think it's going to be a really, really fun match.
Okay, I don't disagree. I'm really looking forward to all the things going down in MLW. It'll be interesting what they do in the next couple of weeks. Filthy Island, and where they go with Hammerstone, and a lot of other directions with Myron Reed. But Jay, I think that it was a really good Wednesday. You only hope that Raw takes the hint every once in a while. That would be nice. I'm not sure where we go from here, though. I mean, a lot of people for the next week are going to just be fantasy booking, every situation when it comes to AEW and New Japan, AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. They're going to be trying to figure out what's next for this. Will Kenta be on the show every week? Will we continue to, be going in circles with this feud? I'm going to find it super interesting to see how all of this develops in the coming weeks and how, people interact in these next few weeks in regards to where everything goes going forward. But Jay, we spoke about a lot of interesting things. I think it's that time where you give me a moment to go and rest the voice and let people know what's going on in the Life group this week and, how they can check us out on social media, which, WWE doesn't do very well.
All right. So first thing, beer of the week. As you guys know, may know if you listen, watch, I'm a big fan of Phase 3. That is a brewery in Illinois. It's like an hour and change away from Chicago, but they deliver all over the city here. So the beer is from Phase 3. It's called Low Ceilings, one of the best hazy IPAs I've ever had. So if you ever get to Illinois or get a chance to get Phase 3, highly, highly recommend it. All right. So we are part of the great group of podcasts, the Wrestle Life network of podcasts. We've got Dong City on Monday, baseball podcast. Obviously, Corey wants to talk about Colton Wong. I don't know who the fuck wants to talk about that, but we've got Arenado, we've got Bauer making news, we got a bunch of different stuff. So let's see what happens with that. We've got the Audible, been on a bunch of NBA games tonight, probably won't win any of them. Oh, Audible, sorry, football. Thinking about that. So the Super Bowl, obviously, big stuff going on there, a bunch of props that I'm going to lose. Then we got the Step Back. That's the NBA podcast. First day, yesterday was the first day since January 27th that there has not been no NBA players tested positive for COVID. So that's a positive sign. Total Bases. You've got us on Thursdays, obviously, Work Shoot Wrestling podcast and Total Bases. So will the NFL or the MLB season be shortened? So we'll see about that. We are Work Shoot Wrestling podcast. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts. Just Google us, Work Shoot Wrestling podcast. I have before. as maybe an ego stroke, and a bunch of stuff from us comes up. So it is fantastic. So please check us out. We are on Twitter at Work to Shoot Pod. I did try to tweet a little bit watching the Raw Rumble during Raw, unfortunately, and the Wednesday Night Wars. I try. I always watch them late, so that's why I'm not usually tweeting as much as maybe Corey would. And of course, we're part of the Wrestle Life group, so please subscribe. We're on Facebook. If you're listening to us, the Wrestle Life group is a great group. I've said this before, not to put the group over, but it's a lot of smart wrestling fans. Some you agree with, some you disagree with, but really good language used. It's not a bunch of racist, sexist scumbags. A bunch of good people who just enjoy wrestling. So it's great. A bunch of marks for sure, but we are the marks of the marks, right? So definitely a fun group. So yeah, check all that out.
And Jay, this coming Friday, tomorrow, there will be a special episode of The Audible for previewing the Super Bowl with Matt and Randy. And apparently there will be a lot of guests from other podcasts on the network. I might try to drop in. I don't know if you'll be around. I think it's at 5:00 tomorrow. So we will see how that goes.
Yeah, maybe I'll pop. I mean, I middled the game, so I'm gonna win a couple bucks no matter what. I think the Chiefs kill him, but I mean,
So do I.
I don't know. I think the Chiefs kill him, but I mean, I hope they don't. I hope the Chiefs win by exactly 3 points.
There you go. But Jay, there is another podcast that we talk about occasionally. Usually on Wednesdays, it's a comedy podcast. Can you remind me what the name of it is?
You don't know Jackie. You don't know Jackie, the ultimate comedy podcast with Jackie Andy, Jackie Rachel, Jackie Corey. And check it out. They basically make fun of Corey their whole podcast. So come on. Wouldn't you want to make fun of Corey the whole podcast? You've listened to this show. So great podcast. Check it out.
Thank you. And this week coming up, it will be about Arnie Hammer with the allegation of cannibalism, some of that stuff going on. So we'll see what gets spoken about there. Editing that as we go.
Like Dan Campbell, the coach of the Lions.
Hey, everybody gets a little hungry.
Cannibalism. That's. I mean, listen. I would say. I mean, I get it if the world ends and you got to eat something, but I don't get it there's burgers out there. There's a lot of different areas we can go with the food, but oh yeah.
And as I said for the last couple of weeks, we will be recording shortly the episode on the David Arquette documentary on his return to wrestling after 20 years. That's in the process of being put together, so that will be coming up in the next couple of weeks. But Jay, I guess last subject for this week, just quickly as time runs down. We've got 65 days or so until Mania. We've got all this awesome stuff going on with New Japan and AEW. Is there anything that's got your attention that is must watch right now? Is there something that you're sitting there going, I have 1 hour of TV to watch and I can only watch one thing that's truly got your attention every week? Is it the Roman Reigns? Is it the stuff with Kenta? What is there something that's really?
I feel like that's a great question. I feel like I have to watch Roman Reigns segments every week. I'd say that for me, that I need to watch what happens with Reigns, and I need to see what happens with Omega. Those are and kind of the dissension of the Bullet Club and where that goes. Those are the two big things every week that I'm like, I really want to see what happens. So the Bullet Club, Omega stuff with how that's going to work out, and Reigns. Those are the two things I feel like I don't want to miss at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are the obvious answers. Those are the correct answers. And as we talk about that, New Japan is going to hope that with the Kenny Omega stuff and the Kenta stuff, that they just announced this morning that they have a North American deal for the U.S., Canada, and not for North America, of course, because I know my geography, with England, with Roku TV. I can't pronounce it. But Jay, do you think that moves the needle at all in regards to helping with the North American project, getting their name out there, or is that not a big enough service? I know a ton of people have the units, but does that really move anything for you, or is it just another
Yeah,
step?
no, it's old show. It's old shows. It's old shows. Any that doesn't do anything for me. It's old shows. So no, that stuff never does anything for me. Um, you know, fans want to see like stuff they haven't seen before. And you could say, well, if you watch, if you don't have New Japan World, you're not, but I mean, I don't think it's gonna like, oh my God, there's gonna be a bunch of people who want to watch now. I don't know. I don't think so. Um, so no, I don't think it moves the needle. But one thing we didn't talk about is Lars Sullivan getting released. And I know, we were not big fans of his because he's a horrible person, but they were giving him a little push. Sounds like he no-showed one of the WWE shows recently and is basically like crippled with anxiety. And he talked about that in an interview and said that they were right to release him. There was no heat toward him being released. And, I think he announced himself that he was released. And so he's released and I don't see him coming. I think he said he's done with wrestling. So probably for the best. Yeah, and probably for the best. And as I always say, as someone who's a school guidance counselor who works with kids every day, and mental health's a real thing. As much as I think he's not a good person and racist and sexist shit he's done is horrible. I certainly don't want someone to go through horrible mental health stuff. So hopefully he kind of gets his life in a good place. And you want to give everybody a chance to improve their life and improve things they've said in the past and done in the past. And hopefully he does that and has gained a different perspective. And, hopefully he moves on and is successful at whatever he chooses to do.
So yeah, I guess I'll comment on both.
See ya, Lars Sullivan.
I almost thought that was the end of the show. I'll comment on both these things. One, when it comes to the New Japan deal, the US, a lot of people could have said the same thing in regards to their deal with Access TV when it first started. It was just, replays of old shows, and it turned into hosting, new shows and the first night of the G1 and other things. So this deal, depending on how people watch it, it could develop into something more. So on that aspect, this could be, I wish it was a bigger platform, but we'll see where that goes. But when it comes to Lars Sullivan, I think Lars Sullivan is an interesting case of like what you said, with the idea of being famous, when it actually happens or when you get that push, it's not always what you expect it to be. And sometimes, they said in the past that, a guy like Batista, who's totally opposite end of the spectrum of being a good guy, who's one of the nicer guys, one of the best guys you'll ever apparently meet in the business, and all the stuff he does for charity and everything else that he does for his community and, where he's given back. But he's apparently, like him, Victoria, have had, crippling anxiety before their matches where, like Victoria said, where, basically every time before she performed, she threw up, what he had, Donovan McNabb, in the Super Bowl, had the anxiety and he threw up before, the drive that he, basically trying to come back and win that game, which of course they didn't. But it's interesting to see if he does come back at some point. He did go, and when it came to the racist comments that did come out, if you want to believe it was a gimmick fine or not, he paid the $100,000. He went and apologized.
$10,000.
Was it 10? I thought it was 100.
I think it was 10. Where's he getting $100,000?
And they were paying quite a bit of money when he got to the main roster, no longer in NXT. But apparently he went and spoke to every African American person on the roster, especially the New Day, and they all, they spoke to him, and they, and Titus O'Neil, and they forgave him for his comments. And of course, other things came out afterwards when it came to women, a couple of months back. So that makes it a little bit, it wasn't racist, but it was, other
very
comments,
sexist.
Very sexist comments. Yeah. So, this guy had a lot of growth to make, but you know what? Sometimes you realize that, and this might just be an out. He spoke to Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful apparently earlier today about the situation. And he, like you said, he's more than likely done with wrestling because of the anxiety. You hope he gets his life together. If I never see him in the wrestling ring again, that doesn't hurt me. But, for some people, when I put the story up on the Wrestling Life Facebook page, there were some people who ripped into him because of, the stuff that he said, which people have every right to do that before we knew that he actually asked for his release himself. If you have crippling anxiety, some people could barely live with that stuff. And like I said, you Jay, you know this firsthand, being a guidance counselor, trying to help youth of this country try to go and get through, their different problems. At any age, you can basically shut down if either by dealing with the pandemic or a loss or different things. Hopefully this guy figures out what's wrong with him and he can become a more productive member of society. But Lars Sullivan, we barely knew you. And I guess maybe we'll never see you again, but if we do, hopefully you're a better person.
Hey, Corey, I mean, and I know, man, our show's going really long today, but Corey, this guy was supposed to be going against John Cena in fucking WrestleMania.
Yeah, like, get Brock Lesnar type push, yeah.
Like the push he was gonna get was incredible, and now he's released. So, I've had students who are some of the top students in the school who are crippled with anxiety, right? So it's a hard thing, and hopefully the guy gets his life together, and we'll see. I don't know. Corey, we got another freaking snowstorm in Chicago after a couple of days. It's very frustrating here. But anyway, whatever.
And apparently, we're supposed to get more snow, I think, on Monday as well. So we'll see how all that goes. But Jay, as always, as we are pumped up about the return of New Japan Wrestling and AEW, Edge, being the headliner of WrestleMania. We didn't even talk about Bianca Belair on this show, which I'm sure she'll be a key figure on SmackDown. Jay, as always, the final word is yours.
I think we're done here. See ya.